Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation. Thank you for that introduction. As mentioned today, we will be covering design and mill for digital removables, specifically for an RPD using a variety of materials, whether it's virtual or real tangible materials, as well as a couple of tricks of the trade and maximizing the features of our 3Shape software. Majority of the framework for today for the RPD will be with Zirlux Acetyl. Now, for those of you who do not know the product itself, I do encourage you to reach out to your local Zahn rep in order to get detailed information. We'll just cover a couple of topics on the Zirlux Acetyl material itself. So the density is set at and is a 1.41, and the tensile strength, as you see, for 61 megapascals and the flexural for 90. The moisture absorption, which is something very important and very valued in our dental and buccal environment, is at 0.22%. Now, that percentage is the weight percentage for the solute in a solution. As far as the indications are concerned, we can definitely use the Zirlux Acetyl for removable partial denture framework. Some people use it for splints, pop-on smile, and for as a long-term glorified temporary. Now, this will be allowing the lab to recycle the remaining material, so on and so forth. So for, again, today's product feature on the acetyl side, this is basically the indications as you see on screen with the characteristics, which some of them have been already registered in my 3Shape control panel DME featured characteristic. So tricks of the trade, if anything needed to be for a specific customizable virtual DME for 3Shape, just reach out to your support specialist at Zahn and they will gladly be helping you out to set up this Zirlux Acetyl specific material onto 3Shape. We will also discuss about the possibility to use that specific design to print in an environment using EnvisionTech, Culture, or Nextent and Dentsply Sirona materials, which I call the pink resins. And this is definitely a demo where you can output an STL so that you can print or mill to your liking or whatever is available in your environment. For this particular segment, we will be using the treatment, which with this treatment as you see on screen. So I will only use the upper model for time purposes, for time sensitivity purposes. And what we will be doing, we will aim for an immediate upper denture. Now, some of you probably are clinicians, or some of you have the demand for immediate partial dentures, which you already have adapted a certain way on the digital side, offering to your customers or clients or even patients. However, I will go ahead and move forward with these kind of design, and this would be immediate upper denture with teeth number 5 and 13 missing, and the patient will have 2 and 15 extracted during the design. The plan itself for the treatment is to create an RPD with pocketed 5 and 13 and include the 2 and the 15 onto the appliance as you see on the right side of the screen. Now, all this, once the design is finished, will be separated in 3 STL files for the production itself. So let's move ahead to a live demo. I have prepared already my dental manager here, and I will go ahead and start my case with an order form. So for this particular case, as I said, I will do these 2 teeth as a resin, which would be a partial denture teeth. And let me just slide this downward so that I can have access. And as you see, I have already identified my resin for partial denture teeth in the process. Now, this would be basically just automatically populated in your dental manager order form. I will not use any antagonists, so I will put it at none. Now on the left side, please don't mind me. I will not fill up the last name, first name, and all these informations for obvious reasons. And for this particular extractions, what I would do is I would go ahead and I would choose crown pontic for denture pontic. Now, the material itself, I will swap it to Zirlux Acetyl so that I can go ahead and I can incorporate these two pontics in my framework. And once my choices of teeth are done, I'm going to go ahead and activate my removable. And let me just slide this over there. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Zirlux Acetyl with the color that I have already uploaded on my system, which is going to be whitish. So again, if I go through the manufacturing process, I'm doing a partial denture process over here with Zirlux Acetyl, and the manufacturer is my demo dongle, which I can switch it easily to in-house milling or printing. So for any questions setting up this particular order form, again, my team will be gladly available and help you out with this particular order form. And at the end of the presentation, please don't hesitate to ask specific questions in regards to this. So once I'm good with this order form, I can go ahead and move forward with importing my scan. So like I said, I do have my upper denture for this particular presentation, my upper model for this particular presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and tie in that upper model. Now, some of you will probably ask the question, well, why can't I use the denture module? The reason for this particular presentation is to show you how to maximize the features of an RPD module in order to your advantage and have a glorified immediate denture within a couple of hours of when the patient presents himself or herself. So right click away, we can move straight to the design. Just a side note, in my control panel, I have activated perform cutting to gingiva when I'm choosing the crown pontic. And that will give me the opportunity to go ahead and have a nicer finish and incorporate onto my Zirlux Acetyl framework. So first things first, what I'm about to do is go to the first prepare icon and just extract digitally these teeth that I'll be working on the posterior regions. So how to extract it, I'm going to go ahead and pick and choose the extraction button, and I will just simply click on this particular tooth and just apply it and do the same thing on the other end as well. And as you see, the auto detection is pretty cool and easy to use. Next up, I'll change my texture to digital. And what I'll do is I'll grab my smoothing tool and I'll just come in, and actually I'll do the reduction first so that I can create this area per se and have a continuous characteristic. And then from there on, I would go ahead and just smooth out the digitally extracted tooth that we are going to be working on. Obviously, there's a lot of detail involved when you're doing these kind of approaches, but I'm sure with the level of technicians we have that have joined us for this particular webinar, you will be even doing a better job than me as I'm demoing right here. So once I'm comfortable with these kind of reductions and virtual extractions, then I can go ahead and pick my smoothing tool, maximize my area of interest on my smoothing, and then from there, I can go ahead, move to the next spot, maybe just work on my contact points right here, and just move forward with my design. So again, I'll choose my reduction and work on my reduction right there, just to make it look nicer. Okay. Next is actually the annotations. So we will be marking number 2, then number 5, then number 13, and then number 15 as crown pontics. And because I have already activated on the order form, I see my artificial tooth and then the crown pontics. Next will be the surveying and blockout. I will leave this case as is in order to win some time, but obviously this is a very familiar interface that you see during design, but let's pretend this is a good insertion axis for this particular case. And as you see, I have some blackout that I will maximize during my design. Next will be the Smile Composer. So the reason why you see it in pink on the resin is because I have activated the color over here, material shaders. So I will deactivate for now in order to have all four of them the same tint. And when you see in pink, it does not mean that it will be incorporated in pink. Those are my artificial tooth, which will be created in STL forms. Hence, I will have a separate file for printing or milling. So I will start off by just doing single tooth placements. And one by one, just moving forward and working single tooth by tooth, giving it a decent position as a preliminary position. And from there on, reducing all the way to my gingival area. There's also the option to use the Smart tool, but I prefer reducing it myself. And one of the reasons why, it's because it gives me the opportunity to work completely independent of the automated features of this particular design. So I'm going to reduce it just a bit so that I can have my proximal contacts freed. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I'm going to incorporate my contacts within my acetyl framework. And this will give me the opportunity to actually have a tighter contact and maximize on my proximal areas where you see that I had freed up. Now for this particular Smile Composer and Smile Library, I'm choosing a digital denture tooth where it has already a negative pocket, female pocket in underneath. And this will actually create a nice pocket with a retention area for this particular tooth. Once I'm okay with this position as well as design, I can come in and I can smooth out any extra surfaces that I don't feel comfortable with, and right then and there I'll leave it as is. So this will be a tooth that you will be able to print or mill. Now let's jump ahead and do the same thing for the other side using the same tools with patients. So I will just position it in a way where I can actually have access to it. So first up, I will work on my size. So the size would be a bit more reduced this way. We'll grab the single tooth tool and just position it in a comfortable way where I have a nice continuity with the posterior region. Maybe just rotate it this way, position it that way, and then have a look from the front view. I think I'm good with this. And have in mind, I do not have an opposing model for time because it would have been time consuming. And we only have an hour for this particular webinar. But for a live demo, if need to be, we can definitely arrange with your Zahn CAD/CAM specialist so that you can see a more in-depth look of what the software does. If I'm not happy with the bottom of my tooth that I'm working on, I can definitely get rid of my model and just go ahead and use my smoothing tool again, activate it, just really focus in on this particular area. So same thing on the opposing side. If I would want to really go ahead and smooth out this area, then totally workable. Bring back my model. I'm comfortable with this position. I'm good to go. If I feel that it's not large enough, then I can just hover on top of it and just expand the size. And like I said, there's a reason why I'm leaving the proximal contacts open like that, because I'm going to draw my spline for my partial, which are going to travel all the way there. And then from there, it will be a contact with the actual acetyl material. So for this particular spot right here, I'll leave it as is. Now let's jump to the posteriors, this particular tooth itself. So let's move it upwards. And then, you know what, let's work on the size of it. So let's decrease the size of it and then go to the single tools, position it in a more comfortable way. And let's activate the collision lines for this one. Since I will be having a contact for this particular tooth, because it's going to be incorporated in my partial denture, in my framework itself. So if we rotate it just this way, I think it's good. Let's cancel out our model to see our collision line. Okay. Go ahead on the opposing side. This side right here. My collision line is right there. I do have contacts with my gingiva. I have options here. So one of the options would be to use the Smart tool, which will give me the opportunity to reduce automatically towards my gingival area and just give that command so that my reduction will automatically be done. I personally like the idea. However, be careful because it reduces on the proximal area as well. So once that is done, what you want to do is you really want to pay attention to the proximal area and if you feel comfortable with that contact point itself. Okay, so if I go in and just really focus on this area, I'm just going to grab my smoothing tool and maybe just smooth it out a bit so that I won't have an overkill on my contact. And these areas would be basically areas of just smoothing it out because it will be close to the gingival contact point. And as I'm moving forward with these smoothing options, I also am very conscious of what my degree of reduction is with my 1.4. Okay, so once I'm comfortable with this, I'll leave it as is. If I would want to increase the size of it, then yes, we can definitely do it. Maybe move on the position, maybe just move it a bit more backwards this way. And as you see, because I went ahead and I moved it, my contact points have been compromised. So no problem there. Smart tool again, 0.01 reduction. So because I played around a bit more here, there's the lag. I know some of you are familiar with this deadly blue buffering that we see, and we get the calls for it. Let's be patient for a minute here. All right. There it is. So the reduction is at 0.01, and we'll do the same thing on the other end. And once these four are done, we'll move forward with the framework itself. So again, let's start off with position itself. Rotate it a bit. Bring it back in. Maybe work on my contact points from now so that I have nice continuity. And have in mind that because these ones are crown pontics, what you can do is you can actually freestyle your design so that you would do as you please and whatever your taste is for design on the crown pontics. So you can still use the traditional reductions, and you can go ahead and maximize your design capabilities, right? You can go ahead and just give that command just to increase the design features of it. So once I'm comfortable with this particular tooth, let's see how it looks like. I can go ahead and give that smart tool another try with the automatic reduction. And right now I'm not on the 15. Sorry, I'm actually on the opposing side. So I will confirm that I'm working on this tooth per se and just give that command of and apply that reduction of 0.01. One final step before moving forward, I'll take a look at my proximal area, and I'm going to go ahead and just smooth it a bit, increase, and just pick and choose this smoothing tool to smooth it out a bit so that it will make better sense for me when my framework comes in. Okay, once this is done, I'm go I'm good to move forward. So for this particular interface, I will bypass the retention grid because my objective is to create pockets for, um, my objective is to incorporate the posteriors, and uh, for these particular two up front is basically to create pockets. So like I mentioned again, for number 5 and the 13, we will create pockets. So I'll jump to the major connector, and I will go ahead and I will say acetyl frame. Now this has been created by myself. I have customized it myself, which is totally doable on your end as well for all you 3Shape users. Now the acetyl frame is a substructure thickness of 1.5 to my preference, the wax thickness at 0.30, and there's a stripling protection if desired at 0.00 that I have went ahead and done. So what I would want to do is really to go ahead and to create my spline uh, for my case itself. So I would not want to pass this area. I'm going to keep it with a gingival contact, which will actually fusion in once my final is done. I am going to incorporate the gingival areas on the lingual side. And what I'll do here is, remember we talked about the proximal contact points? I'm simply going to say I want my contact points to be done with my acetyls, with my acetyl material. So just going to go ahead and contour this area. And again, contact point here. Go down this way, incorporate the gingival area. And I would want to incorporate the gingival area because I need some texture to it. I need some mass to it and volume. And that's the reason why I'm incorporating that gingival area. From here, just going to come in and do a fast edit line right there so that it will be underneath my posteriors. just to do a quick inspection of what I have done. Okay, I clearly see that I need to just expand it over here. This way. I can come all the way up front, not a problem. That's okay. Slides are okay. Linguals are good. Can work with this area as well. Okay, so let's do a preview of how this is going to look. Now, I will be taking advantage at the end, near the end of my design, to reduce and incorporate, to create my pockets. And that's just a click away. Why I really like using this partial framework interface is because it gives me a good anatomical characteristic of my palette. So the rugae area will be nicely duplicated, and also it will give me the opportunity to reduce and increase all kinds of materials wherever I am pleased. So for this particular case, for example, obviously you see that there's no material really tying in with these with this area. So what I can do is I can go ahead and move forward. I'll bypass the clasps because I don't need it for this particular case. And if need to be, and if you do want to add clasps, what you can do is you can definitely go ahead and change your texture, change your color scheme, and as you see, you're already close to looking something that was shown at the beginning during the presentation. If I would want to add some clasps, I can definitely go ahead and I can move forward with the addition of my clasps. So if I follow my areas right here, I can definitely work my way around it. Maybe just give it a bit more mass to it, as you see, and maybe just reduce it right there so that I can have a nice finish and a thinner clasp. And if I need to do a minor standard one, I can definitely come in and create that thickness with this minor standard that you saw. So, and then just pick and choose the thickness of it so that at near the end, we'll have a nice finish to it. And have in mind that we will also be able to use the tools in order to smooth it out. This is just an example of a clasp that I'm showing, but for you RPD users out there, you can definitely take advantage of your knowledge as well as your expertise to add these clasps. Now, what I really want to do is really focus on these areas right here. The reason why I'm bypassing these clasps is because this model itself is not really, it's going to take more time to do the actual clasps and the finishing. But what I really want you guys to see is how I'm going to create this pocket right here. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to reduce in transparency. So I give the texture halfway in using this slider. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to exaggerate with my increasing on the material and the volume of my framework itself. And as I'm increasing, I'm seeing the transparent tooth disappearing. And there's a reason why this is happening. It's because what I want to do is I want to maximize on my material underneath so that I can go ahead and have a full control near the end of my design to actually smooth out the areas which are more interesting for me after the pocket has been created. And I'm really going crazy on this particular area right here. And I don't really, I'm not really concerned about it because once the pocket is created, I'll have better control. So moving forward this way, right there, and I'll do the same thing for the opposing side. Now you see, when we discussed about the contacts and the proximal areas, I still have a contact point right there. I do have the capability to have a nice snug fit with this immediate denture that we're creating. So again, I'll do the same thing over on in this area, really go exaggerated so that I'll have my material nicely created. And once I give the apply of the pocket and the reduction, then it will all make sense for me. Now, if you want to work on the design of the framework itself and you really feel that the framework has exaggerated characteristics, same thing over. You can just increase the area of interest as well as the value of your clicks and just really come in and reduce and use the smoothing tool in order just to make it look smoother. But I really like the feature and use, using the RPD module in order to create a framework which I can actually have a 1.5 thickness to it, and then really go ahead and work on my design side and incorporate whatever I need to do with the back end on the posterior. So if I don't like really this right angle finish, sharp edges, I can come in and I can just go ahead and smooth out. And if I need to add any material, you get the point. I can go ahead and add some material and then go in and smooth it out. What's happening here on the gingival area is, remember we talked about really not going all the way underneath and covering the framework all the way to the gingival buccal area? Well, that's the reason why I stopped my spline right at the edge of my visible gingival margin right there. So let's see what's going on this particular area. So let's increase and let's add all the way. Okay. So the last step would be to move forward. No finishing line. And just use this smart tool to do contact and smoothing. This will give you the opportunity to reduce automatically whatever denture teeth you have incorporated in your design. So as you see, there's a reduction that took place. And this will create your pocket for your luting once your two teeth are printed or milled. I still have the opportunity to come in and really work hard on my design and smoothing out of the area itself. If I feel that I really went ahead and created a pocket that is not enough for me, then I can definitely go back and I can work my way around increasing that area per se in order to get more support for my milled or printed tooth. Same thing on the other side. Remember, we did some exaggeration on the material itself. And like I mentioned a bit earlier on, my proximal contacts will be with the acetyl, which is the framework in itself. So if I cancel out these parts, I do have an acetyl base right here with my two posteriors incorporated and my two pockets created. If I would want to add any kind of stripling, I can definitely go ahead with the 2021 feature. I can add an area that I would want to, and this is just an example, obviously. So I would create the area of interest. and just choose the type that I want. If it's a fine type, for example, with the height that is suggested by default on the left side, which is at 0.1, I will have that stripling effect as well. Now, I personally would leave it without any stripples, so I would just go ahead and do undo, cancel out the selection, move to the next step, and it gives me the opportunity for all of you who are printing to actually create, and also the millers out there, you can actually create the connector area, the support bar for this particular case, just to have a bit of a support to it. Okay, you can increase it this way. And if you feel that this is not enough, you can definitely play around with the diameter of the support bar, and you can decrease it and just choose to give that extra support. Once I'm good to go with this, I can hit next. Get rid of my model, change the color scheme. Whatever you see in pink are your denture teeth, which will be separately milled or printed. And then you would have your posteriors, which remember we did virtual extraction for your patient, and they will just come in, finalize your acetyl framework, lute in these pocketed teeth, and then we'll walk out with four teeth to their availability in the buccal region. So this was my live demo. Hopefully I showed something that you had not seen before. And for those of you who had seen this already, well, thank you for your patience for seeing a repetitive or a repeat. But hopefully you picked up something. If there's anything interesting that you would want to know, please don't hesitate for the Q&A. Now, the part 2 of this segment would be to actually move forward with the cam side. So we will nest it in MillBox, and we will go over a couple of features and what would be an ideal nesting approach to it in order to maximize it on the milling side of it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this case. And I'm going to go ahead and right click and generate my cams. Go ahead and advance, explore my cams. So the arch teeth would be these two. These are the two teeth that I just created, which are the denture ones. And the third STL, like I mentioned during the beginning, that's one, and that's two. So I got two windows open, right? Which are separate STLs, obviously. And then the third STL, which would be available for me, is the actual frame with the posteriors incorporated. There you go. If I work on my color scheme, it doesn't matter at this point, but this would be my framework, as you see.